All right, all right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight is Imran Salha. He is the Imam of the Islamic Center, and he is going to tell us a little bit about the Uncommitted campaign, as well as what I consider to be a huge update. Thank you so much for joining us, Imran.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure, and thank you for all that you do.
So I think I want to start off with the Uncommitted campaign, the beginning start of this campaign. I mean, obviously, this was during a time when I would say not too long after October 7th. And there was a big push from Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Just to refresh everyone's memory about this particular campaign, what was the original goal with the Uncommitted campaign?
Thank you so much. So I will say to start that I was one of the individuals that lent my personal support in my personal capacity to the Uncommitted campaign. To my knowledge, I do vividly remember that, this was something that was started actually from some voices in Minnesota that decided that they wanted to make a very clear statement, being that they were part of the effort to put certain representatives from the Democratic Party into office, that they wanted to make very clear their disavowal from the Democratic Party because of their inability to stop genocide. And when the meetings progressed, we decided to make this into it was decided to make this into a national call for action. Just so everybody who's listening is aware, yes, my name is Imran Salha. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I'm as American as Dunkin' Donuts and Domino's Pizza, but I am Palestinian. I am from the West Bank. And one of my distant relatives, Randa Ajaj, and I just want to say her name, in the West Bank, not even in Gaza, in the West Bank, 37 years old, was shot and killed in her car in the passenger seat while her husband was driving and her son was in the back seat. She was 37 years old and leaves 8 children behind. So, and this was on October 12th. This was right in the aftermath of everything that went down. So I want everybody who's listening to think about me, Imran, not the Imam of the Islamic Center of Detroit, but more so the individual who now has someone from his village in Palestine who was murdered. And those 8 children are now motherless because of the actions of the illegal Zionist regime that is Israel. So now I voted for President Biden in 2020. And this is because, again, to bring personal elements to it, I also at the time, throughout the Trump presidency, I was imam of another center in Michigan here and involved within the community. And I know personally individuals who their families were broken apart based on the ruthless immigration policies of President Trump. So at the time, and trust me, it was not unknown to me how much of a Zionist President Biden was. But again, in good faith, trying my best not to be a one-issue voter, looking for the greater good of this country, I thought that it would be best for me to cast my ballot for President Joe Biden. My story is reflective of the story of a large majority of Muslims and Arabs and Palestinians and the supporters of Palestine alike, okay? Being that they supported President Joe Biden and then felt betrayed. And it's not just about me. Look at Chicago, Wadia Al-Fayoumi, 9-year-old boy stabbed 26 times by his landlord, making it unequivocally clear that this was a bigoted attack against Palestinians. And he stabbed this young boy, this angel, 26 times in front of his mother. And his mother lost consciousness only to awaken in the hospital to find out that her son did not live. So all of these stories are stories that were boiling our blood, making us feel that something needs to be done. And when we go to the commander-in-chief to look for solace, we are only met with statements like false stories regarding beheaded babies that led to actual beheaded babies in Gaza, false allegations of rape that the Times of Israel themselves rejected, saying that there isn't even enough time for us to do analysis to indicate that sexual assault occurred. And although he came out with public statements with his voice, his retractions were only written statements that nobody would read in the aftermath, leading to the emboldening of bigoted individuals like the individual who murdered Wadi al-Fayoumi and many other stories that we saw. Hisham, Kinan, and Tahsin, 3 young men in Vermont that were shot because they were wearing their kufiya. A man in Austin, Texas at a protest that was stabbed and almost lost his life. And the stories do not end. Okay, not to mention the threats here in Michigan. Someone from Farmington Hills was threatening to come to Dearborn to kill all the terrorists. Okay, and after all this, and the final point is, what was President Joe Biden's response? Don't listen to the statistics that you receive from the Palestinians. Yep. So with all of this in mind, it was very clear that we were betrayed. And it was our responsibility.
Oh, Imran, really quick. I think Eric's trying to tell you your audio, if you can get a little bit closer to the phone, because when you turn your head, your audio goes out a little bit. Sorry about that.
Sure. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So because of this, I want to make it clear. I believe that I committed a moral sin voting for President Joe Biden. And I feel as though that I owe it to my people as I cast that ballot to now utilize my voice to cancel out the moral depravity that I caused with my vote, to cancel that out by ousting him from power and tying the crime to the criminal. And so that was essentially, you could say, was the philosophy behind, the Uncommitted campaign. Uncommitted because of 221,000 residential units that were destroyed. Uncommitted because every single university in Gaza was destroyed. Uncommitted because there's not a single functional hospital that's left. Uncommitted because Dr. Sufyan Taya, one of the world's most internationally renowned physicists, was murdered. Uncommitted because Dr. Rifat Al-Ar'ir, who was a poet and an English language major and a professor in Gaza, was murdered. Uncommitted because he wrote a poem dedicated to his daughter right before he died, titled "If I Must Die, Then Tell My Tale." And uncommitted because a few months down the line, they killed his daughter that he dedicated the poem to. So all of that uncommitment was due to the bloodshed and due to the destruction. 2.2 million people, 100% of the population is displaced. So that was what drove us to that point. We were the reason, especially in Michigan, as to why he won. And we want to make sure in the swing state we are in to utilize our voice to punish genocide. That was the mantra, I guess.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. I've heard so many stories about people that have lost family members, whether it's in the West Bank or Gaza. It's incredibly sad. Ronnie Akalik was just talking about this recently, and she said it's like the U.S. government doesn't even, like, the people, they don't even care. Like they just hate us, etc. And she's based in Lebanon, if I remember correctly. One of the things that bothered me initially in the beginning with the Uncommitted campaign was I felt like somehow it seemed to become Rashida Tlaib's project for whatever reason, I guess because she made an ad where she was saying, Biden, we will not vote for you, etc. And what I found was just really unsatisfying to me is that, okay, what happens after you are uncommitted, right? What happens if Joe Biden does not move? And I knew he would not move. So my whole thing was I felt like Rashida Tlaib, being the voice that she has and being a member of Congress, especially considering she's been censured, so she's not a favorable Congress member in DC, right? Maybe in her community, but not in DC. So I wanted Rashida Tlaib and others to push members of the Uncommitted campaign to move away from the Democratic Party, to vote for someone who is correct on this issue, someone who has been out in the streets fighting for the Palestinian people. And what I noticed is that she was not willing to go to that step, because I knew, and I tried to be as frank about this as possible, but I knew that Joe Biden was not going to cave on Israel. I knew that he was going to go with what Israel wants, because he's in bed with the Israeli lobby. Like, he takes money from them. He called himself a Zionist, etc. So I knew that he was not going to budge on that particular issue. So when I found out that it seemed like it's like, what was the next plan? I'm like, okay, he won the primary, which we knew was going to happen anyway. And then we're going into the general election, right? So then all of a sudden, Joe Biden is taken out. He decides to drop out of the race, and Kamala Harris enters the race, which nobody voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 Democrat primary. So she was selected. And then I started to notice things as time went by, and I said, no, there are candidates that are running outside of the duopoly, that are out in the streets fighting for Palestinian people, like Jill Stein, like Cornel West, like Claudia de la Cruz. They've been out there fighting for the people. And I didn't like that. I felt like Rashida Tlaib herself should have left the Democratic Party, not just for what they did to her people, but the way that they have treated her personally. And she should have ran as an independent, because she already has the support from people within her community. But things did not go that way. And I want to hear from you. Why do you think the Uncommitted campaign was not willing to move outside of the duopoly?
I think your observation in terms of the Uncommitted campaign is very accurate. And this was a fear of mine from the beginning. You seem like a very sincere, straightforward person, and I like that. So I would like to maintain that same level of transparency with you. One of my greatest fears with the Uncommitted campaign is that, to a certain extent, I believe that the campaign, and this is my opinion, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I have every right to do that. This is America, right? I believe in many ways the Uncommitted campaign was co-opted and was infiltrated by people that have benefit in maintaining their loyalty to the Democratic Party. And to me, I believe that politics should be an extension of ethics, okay? The code of ethics should not be suppressed by the geopolitical interests, whether that's personal or national, etc. And I feel as though that people started putting their personal interests in front of the people that we are advocating for. So if we have people in Gaza, we have people in Palestine that are paying the price with their families. I have community members from my mosque that lost over 200 family members from their family. There are families that have been wiped off of the civil registry. Okay, I have community members in my mosque that were too scared to do their funeral services for their family members because of the intimidation tactics that exist against Muslims today in light of the current events. So with all that being said, I really thought that this was going to finally wake us up to engage the political process from the perspective of ethics, not from the perspective of personal gain and benefit. Now, I will say, I don't know, and I don't know the reasons behind, why a certain individual, and you mentioned Rashida, and I consider Rashida a friend, and I think that she really is, doing excellent work. So I am happy with the work that she is doing, and I'm proud to have someone on the ground that is advocating for our people. And I am unsure as to why there is this maintenance of a connection to the Democratic Party. And I am absolutely unequivocal in my complete disgust with anything that has to do with the two-party system. And it's very clear, especially I want to talk about the Muslim community for a second, because we're a minority among many other minorities, right? And our experience was that in order for us to maintain our rights, it is essential for us to engage the Democratic Party. Many of the leadership from the Muslim community had an open line of communication with the Clinton with the Clintons. So this line of communication created a mirage of inclusivity. It created a mirage of, safety, and a mirage of advocacy for our causes that we held near and dear to our hearts. But the reality of the situation is we've been engaging the political process in this very active, systematic way for the past 2 to 3 decades, the Muslim Arab community, let's say. And we came to the point, and this is my message to those who are uncommitted: you are not truly uncommitted. You are not truly uncommitted, because truly uncommitted people, the parties that brought this genocide and orchestrated it against our people, will not bring us back to the same status quo politics that brought us to the position that we are in today. For almost 2 to 3 decades, we've been engaging the Democratic Party, and we could not even get a bottle of water into Gaza.
Yeah.
Where is the value of that engagement? So I absolutely lend my support to your voice in that there is no way that we can just engage every 4 years with the mentality of the lesser of two evils, because we allowed, because of this, for a genocide to occur right before our eyes. And I have so much to say. I feel so bad. I feel like we should have came to this a long time ago. Barack Obama dropped a drone bomb on Pakistan every 20 minutes on average throughout the 8 years of his presidency. Why did we forgive him for that? Why did we give him a second term? Why did we not reevaluate after Fallujah in 2003 when they destroyed Iraq? Why did we forgive? Why did we forget? We have our numbers in the millions. America has not forgotten, and it is equally as gruesome about upwards of 3,000 individuals that were murdered on 9/11, which is a travesty. What about the millions that suffered, that are suffering actively until today? Why have we forgiven this? The moral fabric of America has clearly been in decline. And I believe that, yes, although there is much blame on the top, we are part of the checks and balances that should restore balance with our votes and with our engagement. So I hear you and I agree. We cannot just return to status quo politics. People are dying every day because of status quo politics.
100%. And I want to show you this from a statement from the co-founders of Uncommitted. This is with an interview with CNN. Layla and Abbas, the co-founders of the group, I'll highlight this for people to see. The co-founders of the group expressed to Harris and Walls their concerns about the U.S. supplying weapons to Israel and the plight of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, according to a statement from the group. And they went on to say this: the VP was receptive. I thanked her for the attention her staff is giving to our request for a meeting about an arms embargo. She thanked me for being there and for my work. That's coming from Abbas, who is an uncommitted delegate to the DNC. An uncommitted delegate to the DNC. I just want to highlight that so people understand where this is going. It feels fruitful. We're hopeful that she will engage substantively with our request to an arms embargo that stops sending bombs to kill people we love. I want to get your take here about the statement from the co-founders of the Uncommitted campaign, because I have pointed this out numerous times that Kamala Harris's advisor has made a statement, not just on Twitter, but also to different news outlets, that Kamala Harris is not in agreement with stopping arms to Israel. In fact, thank you, Colin, for this. The U.S. just committed $20 billion in weapon sales to Israel, with contracts expected to be fulfilled in the long term. This war is not ending anytime soon with either Harris or Trump. So why do you think the co-founders are sending this message?
I'm extremely disappointed by this message. And I will say, because I always believe it's important to recognize the good that everyone offers. What Layla Al-Abid and what Abbas Alawiya organized alongside Lexis Dina Zidan and many other leaders in the Michigan community, what they organized with the Uncommitted campaign to get 130,000 voters to vote uncommitted, in my opinion, is historic and praiseworthy. My problem was and my fear ended up coming true, is that they are engaging the political process with the philosophy that we're Democrat by default.
Oh, Amon,
Democrat by default. We don't owe.
I think you froze for a second. I'm sorry. Can you? Uh-oh. I think he froze. Let's give him a minute. Let me tell him here in the private chat. Amon, can you you okay? Okay. All right. Sorry. Last thing you said was Democrat by default.
So yes, can you hear me now, Sabby?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we are not Democrat by default. We don't owe them our votes. And it's very frustrating that we continuously engage in this way, and especially when I was reading the rhetoric regarding like the decision to go from Shapiro the Zionist to Waltz the Zionist. So we now have a more mild Zionist. And it's more insulting because I really want to ask those who entertained this meeting with Kamala Harris regarding this decision to bring Waltz on board, the Arab Muslim community and like-minded people, supporters of Palestine in Minnesota, there's not that big of a time difference between us and them. Did you consult with them about their governor? Did you see their experiences with their governor regarding support, a blind support for Israel? Was there any consultation whatsoever? Or was this just an executive decision that you took on your own behalf in order to, maintain once again some level of engagement with the Democratic Party? That's what it's coming off as. It's coming off as we are trying to show that we are making moves, but this is not a move, okay? We are getting played. They know that they can make it seem, though, when I say they, I'm referring to Kamala Harris and this whole campaign. They know that there are certain impressionable individuals utilizing the boogeyman of Trump in the same way that the illegal Zionist regime of Israel utilizes Hamas to justify their iniquities and their evil. Kamala Harris is utilizing this red herring of Donald Trump in order to maintain some level of, more good moral standing in front of the public. You are giving her more ammo to do that when you praise her for moving to from Shapiro the Zionist to Waltz the Zionist. You're giving her more ammo to prove, look, I am the good guy in all of this. You can't blame me. So this to me was a very disappointing statement. And it was a fear, not just of myself, but many others who were involved, that the uncommitted campaign was going to be the best amount of unity we were going to be able to get our hands on. After that, the people who had their loyalty to the Democratic Party, and it didn't take long to come out. Very soon after, there were little statements and op-eds here and there saying that if it came to it and it was Trump versus Biden, I would have to vote for Biden. And once again, I mentioned this on a recent video that I recorded. I want somebody to please articulate to me, what is it that you will endure? It is January 2025. Let's do an experiment, guys. It's January 2025. Donald Trump is the president of the United States in the worst case scenario. What exactly are you going to endure that is more severe than beheaded babies? What are you going to endure that is greater than the pain of genocide? A man today in Gaza, I can't even believe it. A man just today in Gaza, his wife and his twin children home to go get their birth certificates, only to come back and find that his twin children and his wife were murdered. What are you going to endure that is worse than this? My vote, whether it's for third party or Jill Stein or Cornel West or whoever it is, my vote is to punish genocide. My vote is to punish genocide. And the final point that I want to say to those who had these conversations with Kamala Harris, what did she do? Action to prove that she is distanced from the actions of President Joe Biden. I don't want to hear words. What did she do in action? Because it is not the time for us to accept words. We need action. If she does not entertain action, because she is in office now, she is acting as if when I become president, you're there now. Do something about it. So I really apologize, by the way, about my emotions. It's just really something that's near and dear to my heart. But the reality is that she has done nothing. And her policy towards what has happened is completely identical to that which the Biden administration has contrived against the innocent Palestinian people. What is being reported as close to 200,000 innocent civilians either died by airstrikes, by murder, or by disease, or by intentional starvation. All of that Kamala is responsible for as well. And if people want to name the innocent civilians of Gaza as collateral damage, then Kamala Harris can end her political career and can lose her chance at the presidency as collateral damage as well.
And no need to apologize for your emotion. It's needed. Like I totally get, I totally understand. And this makes me wonder something, because the way that they were just able to come in and say, oh, we think that she'll do the right thing and she's willing to stop the arms to Israel. Kamala Harris is on. Right. Kamala Harris is on video telling people she supports giving the weapons to Israel. So I don't know whatever they said she told them behind closed doors, something does not add up to me. And it makes me wonder, do you feel that at least those two particular people, the co-founders, especially considering that Abbas is a delegate for the Democratic National Convention, do you feel that those two, the co-founders of the group, made a deal, some type of deal with Kamala Harris?
I wouldn't be able to know. And, we live in a time where you can't really put your finger on what the potential scenario is. But what I will say is this. I like to refer to my track record. I am not perfect. I make mistakes as well. But what I will say is this. I was asked to meet with officials from the Biden administration a few months ago. Okay. And I rejected it. Because they wanted to send officials regarding aid and food. And I made it very clear to them, I don't want your damn food. I don't want food from the same people who are killing my people. Why would I, you know how demeaning that is, especially cultures that have poetry about being a warrior and being courageous and having chivalry and having honor. When you come from this culture of honor, you respect yourself too much to accept aid or have conversations about food with your murderer. So, in my opinion, I do believe that in terms of principles, this is a major disappointment. For there to be any engagement with the Democratic Party that has murdered our people time and time again is absolutely unacceptable. And I do believe that my sister Layla Al-Abid and my brother Abbas Alawiya really must reevaluate the way that they are engaging, because there is so much good that can come from their work that it would be very sad to lose their organizing power to a group that is simply using them, co-opting their skills for their political interests. You will not outplay them. Against what they did, to be very clear, and I believe that they must retract as soon as possible, with all my due respect to the work that they are doing.
And I do want to show people this here. Also, in that same interview with CNN, Assad, who is one of the co-founders of the Uncommitted movement, he is the one that is a delegate for the DNC. It goes on to say here, it says, Assad, the chief deputy council executive of Wayne County, who supported the Uncommitted movement during Biden's presidency, told CNN Thursday he is now endorsing Kamala Harris, saying she represents the true spirit of our nation and values. This does not make any sense to me, because again, Kamala Harris has just, and I'll just push up here so you guys can see the statement from her advisor, which the uncommitted leaders of the uncommitted tried to say that this person is like a Republican or something like that. That's not the case here. And also, if a presidential candidate has a problem with their advisor, they can always fire that advisor and hire someone else. These things happen all the time. Let me scroll up here.
Yes.
And I'll just,
as for As'ad Turfa, it's funny because you're talking about all the people like round the block. Like, these are people that we interact with all the time. And I have to say, the most disappointing statement that I have read in the past 10 months was the statement of As'ad Turfa. Okay. Completely disappointing. And to be honest, again, as you know, I'm a religious leader. I lead a community, and I like to engage with circumstances, with, ethics, godliness. I don't like to assume. I don't like to even, cast aspersions upon people's intentions. But the reality is that there are certain positions that you take where you make it almost impossible for your action to be interpreted other than some level of vying for your own personal gain. And in my opinion, with all due respect, I believe As'ad's endorsement was for personal gain only. There is no reason for such a strong endorsement to be made without some level of, experiencing a benefit. And, again, I am not aware of what happens behind closed doors, but I really, really would be willing to bet on the fact that this was not because he believes that Kamala is actually, best, or that we have any right to dismiss the murder that was happened by, some form of, I don't know what you want to call it, political strategy. I am absolutely, I just want to say very disappointed by the statement that he made. And the only interpretation that I could find for such an action is that there has to be some level of personal interest in it for him to make such an endorsement. It's unacceptable. Yeah.
This is correct. And I don't know if people are aware of this, but there was an interview someone sent to me as well with Cornel West, where he mentioned that they contacted him. They contacted him asking him to drop out and to offer him something as part of, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everybody else, out of the way. And I want to show people what the advisor said, because this is very important. The advisor said the VP has been clear. She will always ensure Israel is able to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. This is coming from Phil Gordon. He's the advisor. She does not support an arms embargo on Israel. That part right there is very important. She will continue to work to protect civilians in Gaza and to uphold international humanitarian law. This is false. And I want to explain to people how this works. If you are still giving Israel weapons, Israel is still going to kill children. They are still going to kill people in Gaza. Also, this extends far beyond Gaza. We also have to talk about the West Bank, people being pulled out of their homes, the land expansion that they're trying to do now in the West Bank. That was happening before October 7th, right? So people have been killed in Gaza before October 7th and in the West Bank. So the thing is, Kamala Harris has been playing this game, and this is what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, where she tries to stay in the middle on this issue, where she'll tell Netanyahu that Israel has a right to defend itself, but then she'll tell Palestinian protesters behind closed doors, I'm interested in pursuing an arms embargo, but they just gave money to Netanyahu. So people are being played, and I want people to really wake up. And what is disturbing to me is that with all the energy that we had out in the streets, with all the people protesting across the world, I am seeing another repeat of BLM, where the grassroots efforts were huge and strong across the world, but a couple of people decided to sell out. And that's what it seems like is happening now with Uncommitted, because to me, it does not make no sense. Why are you supporting Kamala? He endorsed Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris they are still giving Israel weapons. People are still being killed in Gaza. It is the Biden-Harris administration. Kamala Harris still won't even call this a genocide. Just because she said the word ceasefire and then there was a loud clap. And then after that, she said for 6 weeks, everybody's saying ceasefire now. That even that has been co-opted. So the point is, Kamala Harris does not recognize that it is a genocide. Kamala Harris is not denouncing Israel. Kamala Harris said she's going to continue to give Israel weapons to defend itself, which means this is all BS.
I'm here. Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. So you were saying Kamala Harris, she won't refer to this as a genocide, etc.
That's right. She still won't call it a genocide.
Yeah. You reminded me of something. So I brought up how I was invited to speak with certain officials from the Biden administration. And I remember, I won't mention who, but there was a certain representative from a certain organization that was trying to push me to meet with the officials from the Biden administration. I said, what is the topic of the conversation? He said, number one, aid. Number two, because I told them the main thing that I'm concerned about is a ceasefire. The ceasefire needs to happen immediately. Okay. And we need to bring up the Leahy laws, which don't allow for America to give aid to an entity, a foreign entity that is committing or convicted of war crimes. Okay. So I said, these are my two main points. If this is on the table, then maybe there's a discussion that is warranted. And he sat down and he told me, we're going to talk about aid. We're going to talk about ceasefire and the Leahy laws and the Genocide Convention, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about that, but also we're going to talk about diversity in all of the, national security, council to make sure that Arabs and Muslims are represented at every level of security. I said, you guys are going to get played. When I want to say no to someone, I tell them when they want one or two things, I put 5 things on the agenda. And then that way, when we leave the meeting, I can say I gave them 3, but I said no on 2. And that's exactly what they did. They sat down with them. A ceasefire wasn't called. There was nothing brought up regarding the Leahy laws. It was just emotional. It was talk. And they were able to walk away and say, well, we met with representatives from the Palestinian community, etc. So this is what I feel is exactly happening to the people from the Uncommitted movement. They are making these meetings, and she will say, yes, let's talk about an arms embargo. And she will be able to bring up, oh, you know what? While we're here, let's talk about the governor, or my VP, okay? I will change the VP choice. How about that? And then they walk away thinking that they won. And even with all due respect, even people like Linda Sarsour were hailing this as if this was like a win. This is a win for our movement. What kind of win for our movement is it? It is not a win for our movement when you go to the meeting seeking an arms embargo and they simply polish the image of the vice president from staunch Zionist to mild Zionist, and they're all the same anyways. So we really are, as you are saying, getting played. We need to engage in a very principled fashion. And as you said something golden. I believe as an imam and as a representative of the people, my activism has to be closer. It has to be purely, not just closer, purely grassroots. We have to stop leaning to interests, personal interests and other gain. No, it is about the movement. If they're paying the price with their blood, okay, then we need to pay the price by maintaining our principles because they need us. They have to earn our votes.
So one more question
to do that. Yeah.
One more question for you, Imran. So would it be correct to assume that the majority of the grassroots activists for Uncommitted do not feel this way, are not ready to endorse Kamala Harris?
And I'm telling you, maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but there is a movement that will be coming out called the Truly Uncommitted, because they are extremely disappointed with the nature of, the way this movement really has been co-opted to simply become another mouthpiece, as if there aren't enough mouthpieces already for the Democratic Party. And that's unacceptable. And we won't allow for that to be the case for our people who are being murdered up until this very moment. The water bottles that you drank at those meetings with your fancy, representatives, that's probably more water than what the people of Gaza have drank for the past 10 months. So, unacceptable. The Uncommitted movement is moving in an unacceptable fashion.
Thank you so much, Imran. Thank you so much for your time. I will stay tuned. I'll keep my eyes peeled for that, because I think Kamala Harris feels like she's got it in the bag here, and I don't know. The polls are showing it that way, but I don't know. That's not what I'm hearing from people on the ground.
Absolutely. I pray for the best, and I really appreciate, your efforts in highlighting all of these matters. And, these are very important conversations, and I feel really blessed to have been here today. And thank you so much. And, make sure to, to everybody listening, I really ask you all to continue to be a voice. These conversations matter. I've met with people, I've spoken to people, through Palestine and through the advocacy for it in ways that I really haven't ever before. So I'm really grateful to every single person of conscience who takes it upon themselves to learn and to speak, because we believe as Muslims, as Abraham was told in the middle of a barren desert, speak the truth, O Abraham, and the people will come. And I really believe that that is the case with this matter. And I pray that we all are gathered in a liberated Palestine one day to enjoy the good food that we have to offer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and hang in there.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye.